People in Appalachia are often dismissed. They're the forgotten Davids that face off daily against different Goliaths, be they different political talking heads or corporate interests aiming to take advantage of them. We're often treated as numbers and caricatures, but we're anything but caricatures. We named this podcast We Are West Virginians, and we're going to make it a light way to learn about issues that affect your life and share each other's stories. Knowing the more we learn about each other's stories, the more power and solidarity we find. I'm Ace Parsi. I'm the Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in West Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. Welcome to We Are West Virginians podcast. This podcast is one of the ways that I get to learn and share your stories, your challenges, and your solutions to overcome the Goliaths that do us harm. Today, we're joined by Tiffany Gale. Tiffany is the project lead for West Virginians Family Childcare Network. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Tiffany, one of the things that I hate that often progressives do is that they throw like these giant numbers, and the bigger the numbers are, the more compelling it feels like their points are. But let's start off with like stories, like a human citizen. What got you into this field? Tell me about you.
Well, my first job right out of high school was in childcare. I always wanted to be a teacher because I grew up very underprivileged, but I always had a lot of teachers standing beside me and there to support me. And so when I enrolled in my local community college, the classes that were offered at that time were early childhood education. And so that's what I signed up for. Um,
Yeah.
and while I was going to school, I was also working full time, often multiple jobs at a time. And I got to learn that the first 1,000 days of a child's life is when the majority of brain growth happens. And so at that point, I decided that that quite literally is the most important time
Yeah.
in a child's life, and I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to early education right then.
Yeah. So childcare is like an enormous issue wherever you are in the country. Help position this. What do West Virginians go through that's unique in that? And if you can even incorporate somebody that you work with or that you've served that shares that story, that brings that to life, what is it that West Virginians go through on this issue?
Sure. I mean, I think nationwide there are childcare shortages, but I think one of the issues that West Virginians face disproportionately is that we have a lot of childcare deserts, and that's due to West Virginia's rural landscape. There is like an astronomically more need for childcare than what's available.
I started out as an elementary and early elementary school AmeriCorps member and teacher, like working in that sort of classroom context. So I love like working with young kids, but
Yeah.
childcare is obviously even younger. And my experience of this was, through a lot of friends, but we moved to Morgantown uh, some 10 years ago, specifically for that purpose that we wanted to be near our family. So I have a certain sense of privilege because I've always worked from home and my wife worked half time from home, so we could make it work and we had family here. We moved near our family because we love our family. But childcare helped as well to raise our children around like a community. But I would say I've lived a sort of a privileged sense that I haven't had, we probably had 1 to 2 days of childcare.
Sure.
So I I really rely on people like you who are in the trenches here in West Virginia to educate me. And the way Tiffany and I met, where we went just at a different event and we started talking childcare, and she started educating me. And what I didn't know at the time that some other people that are watching this might not also know is that there's 3 different types of ways that we deliver childcare here in the state, and that's very relevant to a rural state like ours. Those 3 different types. So can you share a little bit about what those 3 types are and how they play out in West Virginia?
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important things that we need to discuss is the different types of childcare, like you said, because of the rural landscape in West Virginia. And so the 3 different types, the first one is a licensed family childcare home, and that is up to 6 children in someone's home, a licensed registered program. And then there is a licensed family child care facility, which is up to 12 children, either in someone's home or in a commercial space. And then the third one is what most people know of as a childcare center, and that's going to be
Uh-huh.
13 or more children in a commercial space. And so in West Virginia, like I said, the majority of childcare providers are family childcare providers. We have about 700 licensed family childcare programs here in West Virginia, whereas childcare centers, we only have about 300. And
Okay.
that is extremely important for West Virginia's landscape because in those rural areas where we might not have like as many people packed into one area, the family childcare providers are very needed to serve those communities.
And I saw through some of the numbers that you sent that we have seen a decline in childcare providers here in our state. What's causing that? What's causing that shortage?
So we have seen about a decline of around 200 family childcare providers in the last 2 years. I would say, family childcare in general, has always had a really rough time making ends meet, and with the increase in costs over the past few years, the margins are already razor thin, just keep diminishing. And so I would say that, of course, that is a large factor, but there's also been a lot of childcare policy interpretation changes that we've seen that, in my opinion, would be a contributing factor to these closures. So I had two programs. I owned one and my husband owned one. For the entirety of our program, we had staff at one location and their children had to attend the other location if the family was receiving subsidies.
Okay.
Recently, uh, policy is now being interpreted differently, and to the point where I lost half my staff and a quarter of our kiddos overnight because they were saying that the policy now, the interpretation now, is that that can't happen. And so for childcare centers, you are allowed to work in the same childcare center as your child. Your child just has to attend a different classroom. You're not allowed to be in the same room. Whereas for family childcare, that's not the case at all.
Okay.
And so that makes it very difficult because most, um, early educators do have children and they want their children to be a part of the quality programs where they
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I
So
think, I
that
mean,
really hit us hard.
yeah, yeah, I can totally imagine that. The practical reality you're starting to get at is both as a person who's a provider, but as somebody who's like also a consumer, like
Yeah.
of childcare, right?
Mhm.
Like, how important is that childcare to the families that receive it, to their livelihoods, to the decisions that they make day to day?
I like to describe it, of course, as Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Yeah,
Childcare is a very
I
important
love Mr.
aspect.
Rogers' Neighborhood.
I love it too.
It's just,
It is a part of the community. It's not
yeah,
just you drop your kids off, you pick them up.
yeah,
We are helping families who, are struggling with food insecurity.
yeah,
We are, family child care programs especially are the ones who are able to provide early morning care, evening care, overnight care, weekend care, because the majority of them are in someone's home.
yeah,
And so we are really all about building community. Of course, it's economic development. Families have to have somewhere to go while they have to work. And what we know now, what we're all experiencing is
yeah,
that most people can't afford um, to survive on a one income household. So even if families do, want, one person and wanted to stay home, they just can't afford it. So oftentimes what we see is then, providers like myself, I opened up my family childcare program because I wanted to be able to stay home with my kids while
yeah,
also helping other families in my community who didn't have that luxury. And so one of the stories that I like to tell a lot, because it's one that just has always hit my heart, was a single grandfather who got custody of his two grandkids because the parents fell
yeah,
victim to the opioid epidemic. Um,
yeah,
he was still working in the mills and works 12-hour days. And
yeah.
so he would bring his kiddos to our program, drop them off at 5 o'clock in the morning, pick them up at 6:30 at night and go home and just love on those kids. But
Oh
without
man.
family childcare, programs that are able to, uh, operate at, early mornings and late evenings, then he might not have been able to do that. So, he was a single grandfather, so he was the only one able to take care of those kids, and he still had
Yeah.
to work. So,
Yeah. And it's, I mean, you think about it, what I was just struck by too when I saw the things you sent me is, you know, nobody goes into childcare because they're trying to get rich, clearly. All right. Like
clearly,
there's a, it's what I saw and what that was just surprising to me was that the salaries are just basically above minimum wage,
yep,
like
100%.
so and it made me think about the reality of, again, how do we think about and treat our children as resources in this in the in our state, in our country, that we are in this moment of a tech bubble, that
Mhm.
our country firms are investing billions and billions and billions of dollars in data centers and different technology startups and things like that. And what it would look like if we treated our own human beings, our young human beings, as that resource that we develop. Like, people would get paid more. We would create better working conditions. It would create, I think, to what you're saying, that Mr. Rogers neighborhood kind of feel. We would surround the community, that it wouldn't just be based on those heroic efforts to make it work. And to me, maybe then, if you can talk a little bit about the working conditions, because if you're getting paid just above minimum wage in that, I mean, then that to me is like one of those things that we need to invest as a country, as a state and society, to raise that salary significantly. But even in the meantime, what will that mean when we are as a state going to be cutting Medicaid, we're cutting SNAP, we're cutting all these different things that these human beings rely on. Have you heard anything about that within the childcare community, and what that will mean uh, in the coming months?
Absolutely. I have so many thoughts on this. So when we discussed earlier, that I started at an early childhood program right out of high school, I was making $8 an hour. So I had to
Wow.
work two jobs while going to
Yeah.
school, in order to make ends meet. There's no way, around it. Right now, I think the average is somewhere between 11 and $12 an hour, but with, the cost of everything skyrocketing, I mean, it's pretty comparative. And childcare providers, early educators, we make among the lowest 2% of wages in West Virginia, and
Wow.
oftentimes, dog walkers make more than us.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really tough. It's tough. It's tough to make ends meet. I want to say somewhere around 43% of early educators rely on the assistance, public assistance. They have to. How can you afford to live when you're making $11 an hour? When we're talking about that $11 an hour, right? That average is often based on, when you talk about hiring staff. Whereas family childcare providers, the majority of them, are working alone from open to close.
Yeah.
So they don't have staff. They don't have someone to come give them a break. They don't have a cook, a cleaner, a substitute, a an accountant, anything like this. They are the one-stop shop. So if we
Yeah.
talk about, if we are open from 5 o'clock in the morning to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, or like we said, on the weekends or overnight,
Yeah.
that $11 an hour starts going down, 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 down,
Yeah.
down.
One of the things that I find that, it's just not a accurate representation of like what actual human beings go through in the state, is that
Mhm.
there's this caricature that people like who are getting Medicaid or SNAP are somehow milking the system. But here's a clear category of workers that are essential to our communities, and not only essential to the current community, but who's going to come to our state to set up businesses and whatever it is if there's not childcare providers? Like, who's going to take care of your kids in that system? So it's just essential for not only our current people, but for the future that we want. And they rely on these benefits that, there's a wave coming right now that, that this last Congress, with their big beautiful bill, made enormous cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, those kinds of benefits. They actually buried like low income people in paperwork. That was their strategy. So
Oh,
right now, if you're a
absolutely.
childcare provider, you have to go much more and do these paperwork qualifications. You have to go to the DHHR office during the time that you're supposed to be taking care of children, real
Hmm.
human beings and children.
Absolutely.
So
Well, and that was one of the policy interpretation changes that changed as well was if you are a childcare provider and you want to close your program for, like if you have to go down to DHHR, if you have a doctor's appointment, heaven
yeah,
forbid, you want to go on vacation, right?
yeah.
Then the state will not reimburse you for that day. Um,
That's
so,
insane. I mean,
mhm.
it's just insane.
Yeah,
It's mean-spirited. It's
yeah.
really mean-spirited. I've just learned so much. I want to just thank you. I mean, I appreciate new friends in West Virginia to educate us on just some of the things that are really important. And if I, if I am so lucky, fortunate to get elected to and work hard enough to get elected to Congress, you will be on speed dial on these
Thank
sort of
you.
childcare policies. But what I've learned from you is that one, the context in West Virginia, we have childcare deserts. Uh, and that because of the makeup of our state, because we're rural, we're spread out, we're going to rely on these three different types of childcare. We need to have that whole gamut of opportunities. We need to reduce the barriers to family childcare providers to be able to do that job more effectively. And then also to be able to support that we need a whole system to be able to support the communities. We need, we also need like thinking about, again, because our wages are so low, I have a policy that we call a care stimulus, which
Mhm.
so far I've only included nurses, teachers, law enforcement, and social workers in that. But we probably should include childcare people on that. That we 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 need to raise those people's salaries, and then in the meantime, also these cuts that are coming along the way, be they SNAP, be they Medicaid, they're going to disproportionately affect a childcare workforce in our state that's
Yeah.
already feeling crushed.
Yep.
And then we need to make sure that we fight to overturn that for that. One of the many reasons, but one of them is that the childcare problem could get much worse come post this
Absolutely.
January.
We say that childcare is the workforce behind the workforce. And if
Yes.
we want a better workforce in West Virginia, like you said, if we want businesses to come to West Virginia, if we want young people to stay in West Virginia, then we have to have that childcare infrastructure to support it.
We're really focusing a lot on affordability is one of our central tenets, and you can't do affordability for all the reasons that you mentioned without high quality childcare. You can't have an economy with without high quality childcare. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing with that for the families. And yeah, have a great day and we'll continue to be in touch. Thanks,
Have a
Tiffany.
great day. Thank you.
Bye.